Imagine this. You're about to step into a moment that matters. For one person, it is the talk before a cup final. For another, it is the lift up to the boardroom before a critical presentation. For someone else, it is a quiet few minutes before going live on stage, on camera, or a difficult conversation. Your heart rate is up, your mind is running scenarios, the brain is doing what it's designed to do, scanning for threats, looking for control, and trying to predict what might go wrong. Now, imagine that instead of scrolling your phone, checking messages, or mentally rehearsing every possible disaster, you put on headphones for 6 minutes and listen to a gentle dawn chorus. Blackbirds, finches, sparrows, maybe a little water in the background. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to feel like the world is alive around you. The question for today is simple. Could that actually change your brain? Not in a vague motivational way, not because it sounds nice, but biologically, psychologically, evolutionary. Could Birdsong become a performance tool? Welcome back to the Winning Edge Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kev Oakley, and this is where we break down the tools, tactics, strategies that build a stronger, more resilient mindset so you can perform at your best when it matters the most. In today's episode, we're looking at the science of birdsong, stress recovery, and attention restoration, and why sound that most of us walk past every morning might be one of the simplest recovery interventions available to athletes, executives, creators, and high performers. Performance edge is not always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about learning how to downshift the nervous system so you can perform with clarity, more control, and less wasted energy. Let's get into today's episode. Most high performers understand training stress. They understand deadlines, pressure, load, competition, and the cost of being switched on. But many underestimate attention fatigue. Every time you force yourself to focus, block distractions, make decisions, suppress emotion, and respond to pressure, you're using directed attention. That mental muscle allows you to stay on task when the task is difficult, but it gets tired. You can feel it after travel, being on a screen for too long, meetings, social media, or a training block where every session demands precision. That is where nature enters the story. Environmental psychology has two big ideas that help us understand what may be happening. The first is attention restoration theory. It suggests that natural environments restore directed attention because they sustain awareness effortlessly. Nature gives the mind something to notice without forcing it to work. Psychologists call this soft fascination. Birdsong fits that beautifully. It's interesting enough to catch the ear, but unusually not demanding enough to hijack the brain. The second idea is stress reduction theory. This says that natural environments can reduce psychological arousal. In other words, nature may help the body move out of threat mode and back towards regulation. Performance, those two mechanisms matter. Attention restoration helps you think better. Stress reduction helps you respond better. The sweet spot for elite performance is neither flat or passive. It is being alert without being hijacked, ready without being rattled, focused without being tense. The article that inspired this episode and we are building on today is by Tamana Begum from the Natural History Museum in London, which was titled How Listening to Birdsong Can Transform Your Mental Health. It profiles the work of Dr. Helena Radcliffe, an environmental psychologist who has studied how birdsong may restore attention and reduce stress. Reckless research is important because it does not just say birdsong is good, it asks a better question. Which bird sounds help, for whom and why? In one of her studies, British residents listened to and rated 50 different bird sounds. Some sounds were restorative, others were irritating or stressful. Gentle, melodic, higher pitched, and moderately complex sounds tended to be more pleasant. Loud, harsh, rough, monotonous calls could have the opposite effect. That matters because the performance lesson is not play any birdsong and hope for the best. A blackbird at dawn is not the same as a gull screaming above a fast food restaurant. A gentle, multi-species chorus is not the same as an alarm call. The nervous system can tell the difference. Now, let's look at the evidence. One of the strongest studies for this topic was published in Scientific Reports in 2022 by Emil Stobe and colleagues. Nearly 300 participants listened to 6 minutes of either birdsong or traffic noise. The researchers then looked at mood, anxiety, paranoia, and cognition. The result was striking. Birdsong reduced anxiety with medium to large effects. It also reduced paranoid thoughts. Traffic noise, by contrast, increased depressive symptoms. Now, this is where we need to be careful. This was not a study of Olympic athletes before a final. It was an online study of healthy participants. It does not prove birdsong will make you win your next match, close the deal, or nail that keynote speech, but it does show something extremely relevant. A short dose of birdsong can shift the emotional threat system. 6 minutes. That is a practical finding. Another major study, also published in Scientific Reports in 2022, used a smartphone app to collect real-world data from more than 1,200 people. The researchers found that seeing or hearing birds was associated with better mental well-being, and the effect lasted for up to around 8 hours. Importantly, this holds even for accounting for trees, plants, and water. That suggests birds may not just be a background detail in nature. They may be a specific cue the brain responds to. There's also physiological evidence. In a stress recovery study, participants completed a stressful mental task and then listened to different sound environments. Skin conductance, a marker of sympathetic nervous system activity, recovered faster during nature sounds that included birdsong and water than during traffic noise. So we have 3 useful layers. Mood, anxiety can improve, real-world well-being can improve, and the body's stress response may recover faster. That's not magic, that is regulation. And regulation is a performance skill. So, why would birdsong calm us? Well, the evolutionary explanation is the safety signal idea. Across most of human history, we did not live inside sealed buildings with traffic noise, email alerts, and calendar reminders. We lived in environments where sound carried survival information. If the birds were singing, the environment was usually alive, functioning, and relatively safe. If the forest suddenly went silent, that could mean something had changed. A predator, a human threat, or a disturbance. Birdsong, in this view, is not just pretty, it is information. It tells the nervous system life is present here and the immediate threat level may be lower. Now, this is not a simple relaxation switch. Culture, memory, and personal association matter. One person hears a wood pigeon and thinks of summer, another hears pigeons and thinks of a noisy city centre. But the broad idea is powerful because the brain is constantly asking one question beneath conscious awareness: am I safe to recover? High performance depends on that question. You cannot recover properly if the brain thinks you're still under threat. You cannot access your best strategic thinking if the nervous system is locked in defensive scanning. Birdsong may be one way of giving the brain a low-cost safety cue. Not a cure, not a treatment, a cue. And sometimes a cue is enough to shift state. Now, let's look at this from a brain perspective. The amygdala is part of the brain's threat defense network. It helps decide what deserves vigilance. When the amygdala is more reactive, the world can feel sharper, more threatening, and less forgiving. Research from the Max Planck Institute found that a 1-hour walk in nature reduced amygdala activity, while a walk on an urban shopping street did not produce the same reduction. That study was not just about birdsong, but it gives us an important clue. Natural environments can directly affect stress-producing systems in the brain. The research has looked at the prefrontal function, executive control, planning, inhibition, and decision-making. That is the part of the system you want online when pressure rises. Some studies have shown improved directed attention after nature sounds, but others are mixed. So we should not oversell the benefits of birdsong. That is the first real-world principle. Birdsong is not a stimulant. It is a restoration cue. The more overloading your nervous system is, the more valuable restoration becomes. Let's look at the application of this in the real world. So how does it apply to athletes, for example? Think about the pre-performance window. Many athletes spend this period accidentally increasing their threat arousal. They check social media, read comments, compare, overthink, or mentally replay every possible outcome. They keep adding stimulation to a system that already has enough. But Birdsong Reset gives the athlete a different option. 6 to 10 minutes before the main preparation phase, put on headphones, play a gentle multi-species birdsong track, keep the volume moderate, sit or stand still, eyes closed if possible, no phone scrolling, no motivational video, no tactical analysis. The aim is not to become sleepy, it is to reduce unnecessary threat arousal. So activation becomes clean rather than chaotic. For athletes who get anxious before competition, pair the sound with slow nasal breathing and a longer exhale, something that we've touched on in previous episodes of the podcast around breathing. For coaches, use it during travel, hotel recovery, post-training decompression, or quiet zones at training facilities. The key is consistency. If an athlete uses it for the first time before a final, it may feel strange. If they practice it during training, the sound can become associated with regulation and recovery. The brain learns context. Let's move this to the executive world. Executives and leaders are often not physically sprinting, but their attention is being attacked all day. Meetings, decisions, conflict, financial pressures, people issues, and digital interruption. The mistake is to treat every 5-minute gap as an admin slot. You finish one meeting and immediately check email. You will leave a difficult call and jump straight into the next conversation. You never let the nervous system complete the stress cycle. Between high-demand tasks, take 5 to 10 minutes with some natural sounds, birdsong, water, wind in trees. No screen, no input, no multitasking. The purpose is not entertainment, it is state management. Before a board meeting, it helps reduce the threat scanning. After a difficult conversation, it helps the body to downshift. Before deep work, it gives directed attention a chance to recover. For executives, the most important performance resource is not time, it's quality of attention. Birdsong is not the whole answer, but it is a simple environmental lever. High performers need levers that do not require willpower. What kind of birdsong works best? This is where we need to be practical. Do not just search bird sounds and pick the first aggressive recording you find. Choose sounds that are quiet, melodic, moderately complex, and also, most importantly, pleasant to you. Multi-species birdsong recordings are a good starting point. Blackbirds, finches, sparrows, robins, warblers, and similar bird songs tend to fit the profile better than harsh calls from gulls, crows, or alarm sounds. Add water if you like. Several studies use nature soundscapes where birdsong is combined with water. That combination often feels more immersive and less repetitive. Keep volume low to moderate. If you're blasting birdsong through your headphones, you have missed the point. And personalize it. Most importantly, if it sounds annoying to you, don't force it because you've read a study or heard a podcast that said birdsong is good. The meaning of the sound matters. The same soundtrack can be restorative for one person and irritating for another. Performance tools work best when the athlete, leader, or creator can trust them. Spend a little time finding what works for you. Okay, let's take this out into the real world. I'm going to give you 3 protocols you can use immediately. Protocol 1, the 6-minute reset. Use this before a stressful event. Set a timer for 6 minutes. Put on headphones. Play gentle birdsong. Keep your eyes closed or soften your gaze. Let the exhale become slightly longer than the inhale. Do not try to relax aggressively because that just becomes another demand to perform. Use it before a race, meeting, presentation, podcast recording, sales call, or difficult conversation. Afterwards, ask, do I feel slightly less threatened and slightly more available? If yes, it worked. Protocol 2, the attention restoration break. Use this between demanding cognitive blocks. After 60 to 90 minutes of deep work, take 10 minutes away from the screens, play birdsong, or, better still, step outside where real birds are audible. Do not fill the break with another task. The goal is not productivity during the break. The goal is better attention after the break. Protocol number 3, the morning nature anchor. Use this to set the tone for the day. 10 minutes outside in the morning. Walk if you can. Listen deliberately. Birds, wind, trees, distant sounds. Let the senses open before the phone takes over. You do not need a forest, a garden, a park, a street with trees, or even a quiet window with birds audible can become an anchor. And also, you're getting that morning sunlight. So, we're effectively getting 2 protocols in one. There are a few traps to avoid. The first is overclaiming. Birdsong is not a cure for anxiety, depression, burnout, or trauma. If someone is dealing with a clinical condition, they need proper support. Birdsong can be a supportive tool, not a replacement for care. Remember, this episode is educational and not medical advice. If you have a clinical condition, go and see your medical practitioner or GP. The second trap is using it while multitasking. If you play birdsong while answering emails, checking messages, and reading the news, you're mixing a recovery cue with a threat input. Use the analogy that is like trying to stretch when sprinting. Use it as a dedicated reset. The third trap is choosing the wrong sound. If it's harsh, loud, or annoying, change it. The nervous system is giving you useful data. The fourth trap is expecting instant transformation. The best performance routines are not dramatic. They are repeatable. The value comes from the cue becoming familiar. Over time, your brain learns. When this sound appears, we downshift. It becomes an anchor. We recover, we prepare. Now, here is the bigger point. High performance is often sold as more intensity, more discipline, more grind, more output, more stimulation, more tools, more data. But the nervous system does not thrive on endless input. It thrives on rhythm, stress, recovery, focus, release, challenge, and safety. Birdsong is a reminder that the human brain was not built only for inboxes, stadiums, spreadsheets, notifications, and artificial noise. It was built for landscapes where sound carried meaning. And one of those meanings may be it is safe enough to come out of defense. For the athlete, that means cleaner activation. For the executive, clearer decisions. For the creator, more mental space. For anyone trying to perform while under pressure, means that recovery is not laziness. Recovery is preparation. The winning edge is not always louder. Sometimes it's the quiet signal beneath the noise. To wrap this episode, here is your action for today. Pick one gentle birdsong track. Keep it simple. multi-species songbirds, low to moderate volume, no harsh alarm calls. Use it once today for 6 minutes, not while working, not while scrolling, not as background noise while you rush. 6 minutes as a reset, before a demanding task, after a stressful moment, between two blocks of deep work. Then ask yourself 3 questions. Is my body slightly calmer? Is my attention slightly clearer? Do I feel a little less pulled into threat mode? If the answer is yes, you've found a tool. Not a miracle, not a hack, a tool. And high performers do not need magic. They need repeatable ways to manage state under pressure. That is the winning edge. That's it for today's episode. If you found this episode valuable, please take a moment to pass it on to someone who would genuinely benefit from it. A colleague, a friend, or anyone working to improve their performance and well-being. And if you haven't already, follow or subscribe to the Winning Edge Coach podcast on your preferred podcast platform. It's a simple step that only takes seconds that helps the show to reach more people who are serious about improving how they think, perform, and live. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you again on the next episode of the Winning Edge Coach podcast.